wondered what I meant. Just thinking out loud, I said. Okay, enough of that. We'll flash back to 1889. And there was a fellow named Young who had buildings in Candor on the site of where LaGeorge Foods is now. And according to all reports, they were burned by an arsonist on March 25th, 1889. A fire that was obviously set did considerable damage to the stage and scenery. It was the next day they burned, in Young's Hall. The blaze was put out with the aid of fire engine number 1, and that was probably a hand-operated pumper and the only one they had. Young's Hall was a pair of 3-story brick buildings with a wooden hallway and stairwell in between. One of the buildings was in use in 1879 when Young built a hotel on the other half of the site that was deliberately burned before completion. The hotel, in quotes, was replaced in 1879 with a second brick building. The Voorhees Brothers Flour and Feed Store occupied the ground floor of one building, L.A. Hart Farm Implements the other. The second floor rooms were used for office space and a barber shop. The third floors were meeting halls for the F&AM, Masons that is, and the GAR, Grand Army of the Republic Lodge, and the public hall known as Young's Hall, where most of Candor's cultural events took place. At 3 a.m. the next night, the top floors of both buildings were discovered ablaze. Somebody wanted to burn those buildings down. There's no question about it. The firefighters succeeded in saving the next block, 80 Main Street, where CCS has their offices now, but the hall was lost. A group of Candor businessmen organized the Candor Hall Company and purchased the Young's Hall ruin, subject to the proviso and agreement that the premises conveyed not be used for stores. A new 2-story, that is high enough for 3 actually, it was, wooden building was put up. One half of the upstairs was for the use of the Masonic Lodge and the other for the IOOF, that is International Order of Oddfellows Lodge. The downstairs was partitioned off into offices in the front, with a hallway leading back to a large public hall in the rear portion. This was to be Candor's cultural center for some 20 years. Now, here's a question. Historians are kind of nosy people, and things occur to them. And what occurred to me was Mr. Young being altruistic in this proviso? Was he dedicated to having meeting rooms for lodges and so forth in his buildings, as opposed to having them used for stores exclusively to make money? Or was it the other way around, that the Candor businessmen wanted a hall that was devoted to cultural events for Candor, and they were not interested in making a lot of money on the businesses that might be in that building? Good question. Anyway, it was built, and unfortunately there was no local newspaper at that particular time that we have any records from that gave, for the next 10 years, the activities and shows and things that went on there, which is a sad thing because they were the gay 90s, you know. And we just don't have them. I did research at Owego, at the Historical Society down there, for my portion of Seasons of Change, and I ran across very few references to Candor Hall in the Owego Gazette. I didn't go through the Times because I didn't have time. Anyway, there was one mention in 1893 of an excellent, in quotes, concert given by the faculty of the Ithaca Conservatory of Music. This is one of the advantages that Candor enjoyed over the years that is not really thought about very much, and that is the fact that we were located close to Cornell University and Ithaca College, which was the Ithaca Conservatory of Music before that. These were professional people who had great expertise in their fields, and they were quite willing to come and speak and play for recitals and so on in the little hick town of Candor, if you will. Of course, Candor wasn't so much of a hick town in those days. There were a lot of businesses here, and it was the main stop on the Ithaca and Owego Railroad, which incidentally is where these folks came, or that's how they got here, was via the railroad. All of these shows that came in those days came via the railroad. And Cornell University people would come down of an evening and speak, and they would come for recitals and so forth from Ithaca College, which was down in the city at that time, I guess. Then we have early motion pictures. These came into the picture about, well, let's say the late 1890s. There were all sorts of contraptions to produce moving pictures. And they were fascinating machines, and everybody wanted to get in on the act, and it was a big deal. Still is a big deal. Movie industry is probably one of the largest industries in the world. In 1897, a projectoscope exhibition with realistic sounds. I'm not sure what that meant. Probably somebody out in the back beating on a tin can or a piece of metal going for thunder or whatever it might have been. And brilliant music, whatever that means, took place in Candor Hall. Not very many details, I'm afraid to say. But in 1899, Hiram and Royal Beebe, his son, came to Candor and started the Candor Courier. And then we had wonderful documentation of things that went on at the Candor Hall. Except that we don't have a complete set of Candor Couriers, unfortunately. But we have enough that we can get a very good picture of what went on at the old Candor Hall. Right after they started their newspaper, Frederick Company